Chapter 33. About the talent of the earth attribute? Yi Tian looked at the martial artist who had just come out of the soil, and was secretly surprised. He was sure that this warrior did not make a hole because there were no holes in the ground, and there were no cracks. It was similar to the earth escape technique in novels. He escaped directly from the soil. On certain occasions, this talent is indeed very good, but it is also very dangerous. If you're not careful, you'll encounter danger underground. And it's very limited. There's no way to cross steel, rocks, and rivers, so it's not very practical. Yi Tian thought about it, and he didn't care for such a talent. Comparatively, he prefers talents that increase his strength. Everybody get out of here, Elder Qing ordered. Phew, swoop, swoop, SSS. A famous warrior quickly retreated, far away from the small hill, as if something was about to happen. Yi Tian also followed these warriors and retreated into the distance. Begin, said the young man. As soon as he finished speaking, the ground began to shake. Boom! As if there was a 10th magnitude earthquake, a terrifying fluctuation of yuan force came out from the ground. Yi Tian was horrified. He could feel that the wave in the ground was enough to annihilate him, and that wave was too powerful. Even an ordinary great martial artist couldn't create such a huge fluctuation. Then, an incredible scene happened. The entire hillside exploded in an instant, and countless stones flew and shot around like cannonballs. Some stones fell on the side of the warrior crowd, but the warriors were all strong, and they could easily block or shatter these stones. In the blink of an eye, the small hillside disappeared, revealing a huge hole, and a large number of corpses of divine power ants appeared in the hole, still burning with flames. At the same time, the temperature in this area had risen by more than 10 degrees. It's the same as the missiles in the previous life, Yi Tian said darkly. However, this was obviously not a missile, because he sensed the fluctuation of the yuan force, and it was very likely that it was a dollar force weapon, similar to the effect of a missile. What a terrifying power! How the hell is this caused? An elite martial artist asked in horror. A great martial artist of the Lin family spoke. This is the effect caused by the flame blast ball. It is said that the flame blast ball is the heart of a top fierce beast with fire ability. After the transformation by a mysterious array mage, there are more than just formation patterns on the heart. The so-called explosion is to detonate the flame power in the heart to form an explosion effect. The value of such a flame blast ball is very high, and it can't be measured by money at all. Even if it's 1 billion yuan, it can't be bought. Flame burst, formation mage. Yi Tian listened intently and showed interest. But these things were too far away for him to have access to at the moment. Isn't it going to be wiped out? Then I can only hope to find a complete corpse of a divine ant, Yi Tian said darkly. However, Qing Lao's expression was solemn, and his eyes were firmly fixed on the hole that had exploded. Be careful, there should still be a lot of divine ants alive. As soon as the words fell, there were bursts of chirping and crawling sounds. One by one, the divine ants crawled out of the hole. Some of them were injured, but some were intact. Apparently, a flame blast ball couldn't destroy a nest of divine power ants at all, but it did make the divine power ants suffer heavy losses. Shoot! The elite warriors of the major families had selected a divine power ant and started to fight. And the great warriors did not hold back, they all shot. Unlike the elite warriors, the great warriors struck like a cannonball. A sword was enough to cut a sword mark tens of meters long on the ground, and the divine power ants were like ants in their hands. Especially Qing Lao. Yi Tian just glanced at him, and his pupils sharply shrank. He saw that Qing Lao casually pressed his hand, and a giant palm, tens of meters in size, appeared in the void, instantly crushing dozens of divine power ants into powder, and even leaving a big pit on the ground, like a giant's palm pressed on the ground. Qing Lao is so fierce. Plus so many great martial artists, it should be enough to push the entire divine power ant nest sideways, right? Yi Tian thought, but soon, he didn't think so. Abruptly, more than a dozen huge divine power ants rushed out of the ground. These dozen huge divine power ants were 10 meters long, while ordinary divine power ants were only 3 meters long. Intermediate fierce beast-level divine power ants. Yi Tian exclaimed. He thought that the divine power ants were all low-level fierce beasts, and even if there were intermediate fierce beast-level divine power ants, there should be only one. But now more than a dozen medium-level fierce beast-level divine power ants appeared all at once. With the talent of the divine power ant, the intermediate fierce beast divine power ant had the combat power of the great martial artist level, even stronger than the average great martial artist. Sure enough, as soon as these mid-level beast-level divine power ants appeared, the great martial artists were embarrassed. Sometimes it even took two great martial artists to contain an intermediate fierce beast divine power ant. However, Qing Lao seemed to be at ease. He dealt with 5 mid-level fierce beast divine power ants alone and quickly killed one of them. At this time, Yi Tian was fighting against a divine power ant, showing the strength of a normal elite martial artist, and he was on par with the divine power ant. And secretly, Yi Tian had already checked the talent of the divine power ants. Species: divine power ants. Bloodline talent: elementary. Strength talents: high. Seeing the high strength talent, Yi Tian smiled excitedly. This trip was not in vain. Judging from the performance of those mid-level fierce beast ants, their talents have not undergone metamorphosis, and they should also be high-level strength talents, so there is no need for me to copy the talents of intermediate fierce beast divine power ants. After Yi Tian thought about it for a while, he immediately copied the high-level strength talent of the low-level fierce beast divine power ant. The moment it touched the divine ant, the copy was complete. But now was not suitable for fusion, and he must wait until a safe place to merge. Judging from the current situation, although the warriors had losses, and from time to time there were elite warriors who fell, the warriors as a whole had an advantage. Over time, warriors could sweep away all the divine ants, provided that nothing unexpected happened. However, in the dark, Yi Tian and many martial artists felt that something was wrong. Could it be that there are more powerful divine power ants that haven't appeared? Yi Tian thought. This possibility was not impossible. A group must have a leader, and the leader is often the most powerful. The strength of the dozen or so mid-level fierce beast divine power ants was not much different. They were definitely not the leader. I hope it's not a high-level beast divine power ant. Yi Tian could only look forward to this, otherwise he could only escape. This group of martial artists would not be able to stop the high-level fierce beast divine power ants. A few more minutes passed. Suddenly, the old man's expression changed greatly. Hurry up, there are high-level fierce beasts in this nest of divine power ants. Chapter 34. High-level fierce beasts. When everyone heard this, their hearts trembled. If it were an ordinary high-level fierce beast, they definitely wouldn't care. A great martial artist would be enough to compete. But if it was a high-level fierce beast divine power ant, on the basis of the original high-level fierce beast, plus a high-level strength talent, even if the attack power after the increase wasn't as good as a grandmaster, it wasn't too much worse. A high-level fierce beast divine power ant was definitely not something that ordinary martial artists could deal with. Even a very powerful great martial artist like Qing Lao was definitely not an opponent. Perhaps only that kind of anti-heaven level great martial artist, or a grandmaster with the same offensive talent, could deal with this high-level fierce beast divine power ant. The only thing to do is to die, Yi Tian realized. So, without saying a word, he instantly activated 3 times his speed and fled into the distance. Originally, his speed was only relatively ordinary among elite martial artists, but under triple acceleration, it was not weaker than the top elite martial artists, or even a little more. In an instant, Yi Tian's figure surpassed many elite martial artists. Boom! A huge divine power ant appeared. Its body was 20 meters long, and its body was a faint golden color, while the average divine power ant was only black. As soon as this divine ant appeared, a coercion enveloped the audience. It's so heavy. Yi Tian felt his whole body sink, as if something was pressing on him. It wasn't gravity, it was momentum suppression. If you couldn't break this momentum suppression, your speed would be many times slower, and you wouldn't be able to escape at all. The speed of the elite martial artists slowed down several times all of a sudden, but the great martial artists were not affected much. Although their speed was also slow, it was only 3 or 4% slower, far faster than the speed of the elite martial artists. Knife momentum. Yi Tian's body erupted with the aura of sword momentum, and the sword momentum of the Dacheng realm was enough to resist the momentum of the divine power ants. The suppression disappeared, and Yi Tian's speed recovered to 3 times, not even slower than those great martial artists. Woo woo! A famous martial artist fled, and even if the high-level fierce beast divine power ant chased and killed, it wouldn't chase and kill Yi Tian, but chased and killed the martial artist who was closer to it. As a result, those elite warriors were miserable. As for Qing Lao, after reminding the other martial artists, he was the first to escape, and he didn't have the heart to fight with the high-level fierce beast divine power ants at all. Oh! One after another, elite warriors fell under the pursuit of high-level fierce beast divine power ants. They weren't even qualified to compete a little, and were slaughtered like ants. In a few breaths, more than a dozen elite martial artists were killed. Accelerate! Accelerate! Yi Tian didn't even have the mind to look back at all, he just cared about running away. He didn't know how far he ran, but he felt that there were no warriors or divine ants behind him, so he glanced back. When he found that there were no more divine ants chasing after him, he breathed a sigh of relief. Finding a random place, Yi Tian stopped to rest. Running all the way, his yuan power was almost exhausted, and his physical strength was also seriously depleted. If he didn't recover quickly, it would be dangerous to walk in the wild. He hurriedly drank a bottle of potion to restore his strength, restoring the power in his body. A few hours later, Yi Tian's state fully recovered. Back to base. Immediately, he returned to the valley where the Wind Wolf and the others were. Yi Tian, you're back! The Wind Wolf was very happy to see Yi Tian. Before, he had been worried about Yi Tian, but now that he saw Yi Tian returning, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. Hurry back to the waterfront base, something big is wrong, Yi Tian said with a solemn expression. What's going on? Asked the Wind Wolf and the others with a frown. Yi Tian hurriedly told them about the divine power ants, and the Wind Wolf and the others all changed color when they heard it. A large number of low-level fierce beast divine power ants, more than a dozen mid-level fierce beast divine power ants, plus an almost invincible high-level fierce beast divine power ant. What a terrifying force this was! Although Wind Wolf and the others hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they could roughly guess something from Yi Tian's tone. At the same time, they also admired Yi Tian's ability. So many elite martial artists died, but Yi Tian came back unscathed. Let's go back quickly. We've already completed the mission anyway, Wind Wolf hurriedly said. So, Yi Tian and Feng Wolf and the others returned in the direction of the Linhai base. Along the way, they likewise did not let their guard down. However, on the way back, they were unlucky enough to encounter several mid-level fierce beasts, but fortunately, Yi Tian appeared to avoid the crisis. Half a day later, they finally returned to the waterfront base. Talent fusion and strength assessment. When he returned home, the first thing Yi Tian did was to fuse his high-level strength talents. His strength had been exposed in the divine power ant incident, and even his speed talent had been exposed. Although it wasn't clear if there was a family that would be unfavorable to him, it was necessary to increase his strength as soon as possible. As long as he was fused with a high-strength talent, he definitely had combat power that was not weaker than that of a great martial artist, and even crushed the average great martial artist. Fusion. The drastic metamorphosis began. Yi Tian's body was like a boiled shrimp, with green tendons protruding, and terrifying power burst out in the depths of his genes, transforming Yi Tian's whole body. He didn't know how long it had been, but Yi Tian was already soaked, as if he had just come out of a pool. Soon, Yi Tian's strength recovered, and only then did he begin to check his talent. Human. Yi Tian. Cultivation talent, high. Speed talent, elementary. Knife talent, medium. Shadow talent, elementary. Healing talent, top. Strength talents, high. Looking at that high strength talent, Yi Tian couldn't help but laugh excitedly. Try the power. Yi Tian held a piece of steel, and with a slight pinch of his power talent, the steel seemed to have turned into mud, deforming at will. He stomped his foot lightly again, and the ground directly cracked, and even the ground around him shook violently. Since there was no sophisticated instrument to test the strength, Yi Tian could only test the strength again and again, and finally estimated it. Originally, my strength was 30,000 caddies, but after the increase in my high-strength talent, my strength can reach the level of 300,000 caddies. Yi Tian said in surprise. 300,000 caddies of strength. What kind of concept was this? If you added the increase of yuan force, the pure attack force could reach 600,000 kilograms. The limit of elite martial artists was only 100,000 caddies, and some of the newly promoted great martial artists had only about 100,000 to 120,000 caddies of physical strength, and most of the early martial artists were only 150,000 caddies of strength. Those intermediate-level fierce beast divine power ants are equivalent to the realm of the early stage of elite martial artists, and they should also be primary bloodline talents. But they have just grown to the intermediate fierce beast level by luck, so it is difficult to kill even a great martial artist under the increase of high-level strength talents. If the realm of those intermediate fierce beasts was slightly higher, an intermediate fierce beast divine power ant would be enough to easily hunt an ordinary great martial artist. Yi Tian thought. At this time, he finally understood why Qing Lao escaped so quickly. In the face of the high-level fierce beast divine power ants, if he fought hard, Qing Lao would probably be killed directly in seconds. It's just that although the power of the high-level fierce beast divine power ant was against the sky, its speed and reaction were still in the early stage of the great martial artist, so there was no way to catch up with the old man. With my strength, it would be easy to kill an ordinary great martial artist. But if a great martial artist wants to escape in the middle stage, I can't stop it, and I can't catch up. Yi Tian had a clear understanding of his strength.